Like, how do you feel? Because you're clearly now famous. I mean, like, you know, to have a video seen by 8 or 9 million people, like, how do you feel about that?
I think when it went viral initially, that was when viral was really viral. I mean, now viral is like 50 million, Mr. Beast, 100 million. But when it really went viral the first time, it was like everybody, like all over the world. You felt like, yeah, people really, you know. So I mean, for me, it was a lot of vindication. But then what people didn't understand, like I didn't have no money. Like my first video went viral, I didn't have no money. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I think a lot of people don't understand about like virality.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Welcome back to another episode of the How Much Do They Make series. Today we have an awesome guest, guys. We have no other than Suli Breaks. Hey, Suli.
Hi, Suli.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? How you guys doing?
Yeah, we're good to see you. We're just so excited to interview you, actually, because like you've got such an interesting life. Like we look at you and we look at the work that you do. So for the guys watching, Suli is a poet.
So you want to get a degree. Why? Let me tell you what society will tell you. It increases your chances of getting a job, provides you with an opportunity to be successful. Your life will be a lot less stressful. Education is the key.
He's a creative entrepreneur. He writes all the time. Like he's got a massive following across all platforms, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and he has done some pretty amazing work. So we're so excited to have you on the show, Suli. Do you want to just start by actually just telling us, like, give our viewers some background, you know, on what exactly you do? I've done a bit of intro, but just tell us what you do and for how long you've been doing it.
So if it comes down to it, I'd say that like I'm a poet and I'm a writer, you know what I mean? So that involves like live performance, you know, creating content around like spoken word, poetry, and then kind of like just leveraging it in different spaces, like commercially, creatively, etc. And then outside of that, like I'm very much into like business, startups, you know, investing, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, and this is I'll probably be like next year. I'll probably be like 10 years into the journey. So I probably started like I mean, it's probably even longer because for the first time I stepped on stage until like I started content creating and taking it to the other level. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So how did you get into this creative, you know, being a poet, writer? Like what made you get into it?
I mean, it came from purely like a passion standpoint initially. So I studied law in university. And when I graduated, I was kind of like, and at the time, my wife was encouraging me a lot to kind of, what am I going to be serious about? You know, she was just like, you got to take your life seriously. And at the time I was kind of performing and writing and people were responding to it. So I used to before I graduated, I was getting invited to different like universities to perform at the ACS and stuff like that. And she was like, listen, maybe there's something here if you take it seriously. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was like, I'd never thought about taking that seriously because it's not something that you really do. It's not like cool like that. But I was like, you know what, let me explore where it can go. And step by step, and it just started to get bigger. And I mean, I was very digitally inclined from the early days anyway. So before YouTube channels existed, I was posting my videos on Facebook. So kind of like everybody on campus was kind of like familiar with my content in some capacity.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's really powerful. Would you just explain to us, what does a day in the life of a poet look like? Like when you wake up, do you wake up with sweet words and like ideas flowing into your mind from like, I don't know, where the ideas come from? Like what actually happens in your life day to day?
I wish I could answer that like properly because it's changed so much over the years.
Yeah.
And like this morning, I'm going to pick up my son. I dropped my son. Then I came back before I met you guys. I had a meeting with a company about investing in a company like a startup. And then I came onto this, and after this, so right now I'm writing a book. So day to day I'm writing 24/7. But usually, what normally dominates my time is there's no fixed schedule, but I'm always working towards a project. So even if I'm creating YouTube videos, I'm working towards an album, or I'm working towards a live show. I'm working towards like an extension of all the content I create online. Mm-hmm. So I think what's made me different from a lot of creators is that what I do online is always funneling towards something else.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? So day to day, I'm always now that I understand formats and I'm exploring platforms like TikTok and stuff, I try to be consistent when I figure out a format. But outside of that, I'm always working towards a project. So right now the project is the book. So every day I wake up, the schedule's changed a bit because initially I'd wake up, my son wasn't at nursery, so then I'd go to the library for like 4 or 5 hours, right? Come back and then start creating content for online. Now it's like I wake up, drop him right to about midday, and then I start creating content online because I think it's important to be consistent with like your community and your kind of like communication. There's always something big in the background.
So what top 3 things or habits would you say, Sully, makes you a success at what you do?
Consistency. Like that's the only thing for me. It's not about being exceptional or talent. I'm grateful to God for have some of those aspects, but consistency. I feel like what has been separated me from a lot of my peers is the fact that over multiple platforms, multiple like iterations of my art, I've always been consistent. And then the second one is education. Like I like studying, I like learning. Like for me, social media is like a science. I like studying the science. I'm currently experimenting on TikTok right now, you know what I mean? And I'm reviewing different things. So for me, I like studying like about business and social media. Those are the 2 things like I have a heavy passion for. Yeah, education. I think I'm a hard advocate for just learning. I wake up and just watch videos about like how was this grow? How did this come about? And also consistency, education, learning from others, learning from others and listening. Like I wasn't too great at that before. So that's probably one of my improved skills. But outside of that, I'd say it's just a creative like passion. I like being creative, you know what I mean? And I have a bit of not an OCD, but I just have an intense focus on things. I can do that. That's just something that I've always been able to do. I can focus on something like for hours on end with with no pauses, and the time just flies away. So that's I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's been like instrumental.
Do you want to just out of interest, give our audience some idea of what has been your most, popular piece of content or poetry, and like what inspired it?
Yeah, I feel like across the board, there's so many different pieces of content that would be popular in specific spaces. So in a London, there might be one that everyone likes. There's a piece called R.I.P. When I first started, and there was a piece where like a lot of the African communities really liked, because I had a dream. But I think on the universal level, the education piece is why I hate school but love education. I mean, the numbers don't lie. That's probably the biggest one. And that would make sense because, like you said, I put a lot of effort into engineering that. And it came down to not just from like a logistical, like understanding YouTube and educational perspective, but also a strategic one. You know what I mean? The biggest thing behind that was having conversations about where my brand really sat when we're at that stage. And it was really the idea. I mean, not to cut a long story short. And so my younger sister said to me, "Oh, you're like a failed student." I don't know if it was a compliment or an insult. No, but so I'll tell you that. And it was interesting because when she said that, it kind of, so I used to go around to all the universities wearing different university jumpers. That was kind of like the style and the theme I was carrying around. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I lost all of them. I had a lot of them. But then also I was reading a comment underneath a Taylor Swift video. And I'm a big early Taylor Swift fan. I'm not going to lie. And one of the comments was like, Taylor knows how every 15-year-old girl feels. And the two kind of like synced in my mind. Like, you have to, like, if you're making content, you have to represent a group. And what group do you represent and what group are you speaking for? So when I put those two together, it was like, this is before, I learned about like heavy about branding and, target market audience. I knew it all intuitively, but it was like, so my demographics was like the disgruntled or kind of like students who felt like the system had failed them. So that was the strategic, that was the kind of like creative strategy behind that. Because that was now my brand. I was like, how do I speak to this group of people? And then now the kind of like logistical strategy behind that was I was studying virality a lot. I had a conversation with someone and they explained to me that YouTube is there's a science behind YouTube, you know what I mean? So I was studying virality a lot. And one of the biggest things that a lot of singers could leverage was covers. Like a song would be big and they'd cover it and then they'd kind of reap the footfall from those views. So with spoken word, there wasn't the same thing. But then a guy, he made a piece called "Why I Hate Religion But Love Jesus." You know what I mean? Yeah. So you should check him out. Very, very cool guy. And when he made that piece, it went super viral. So I was like, okay, cool. Here's something that I could finally cover. And it's crazy because I was working in nighttime at the time. I did it overnight. His video got like 20 million views. So we recorded this video we made the first video overnight. Like I still have the video of when I was writing and making it, because my friend came to my house and we were recording it. It was like, this is gonna hit 1 million views. Watch this. You know what I mean? So I've got that on my computer. So this is the funny thing, because, you know, like God, or, you know, like serendipity works in mysterious ways, but like, for me, God always works in his own way. So we upload the video and it doesn't do anything. This is the first version of the video. So before the one that went super viral, there's one where it's just images.
Right.
There's just images and what's it called? And that was just there. So that was sitting there for like maybe like 6 months. And then someone else approached me saying they wanted to make it into an actual video. Do you kind of get what I'm saying? And that's where it evolved. But yeah, so I studied the original writer of the Why I Hate Jesus, Religion But Love Jesus, Jefferson Bethke. He was like a Christian guy. He wanted to tell his story, and I kind of like leveraged what he did and did it in my own way. And then when we made it into a fully produced video, just off the whim, someone was like, I like it. Almost a year, 7 months later, that's when it really took off. 3, 4, 5 months later.
7 months later.
Fascinating.
Just so interesting just hearing that, because
yeah.
Because now, how many views does that have, that video, just out of interest?
Maybe like 8, 9 or something like that.
8 or 9 what? Just
million. Sorry.
Million,
Sorry. Oh, 9 million. Sorry.
So Sully, that must feel, I mean, I'm just so curious, like, how do you feel? Because you're clearly now famous. I mean, like, you know, to have a video seen by 8 or 9 million people, like, how do you feel about that? How do you deal with that on a personal level?
I think when it went viral initially, that was when viral was really viral. I mean, now viral is like 50 million, Mr. Beast, 100 million. You know what I'm saying? But when it really went viral the first time, it was like everybody, like all over the world. You felt like, yeah, people really, you know. So I mean, for me, it was a lot of vindication. But then what people didn't understand, like I didn't have no money. Like my first video went viral, I didn't have no money. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I think a lot of people don't understand about like virality. So it was exciting. I mean, it was exciting because I felt like, listen, I feel like there's, in everybody's career, no matter what you do, there's always like turning points, you know, and I can look back and connect the dots, you know, like Steve Jobs said, and I can see a series of turning points that were significant. And I definitely remember that as a milestone where it was like, okay, I'm arrived now, you know, on a kind of like popularity level, like credibility level, I've arrived. But that first viral video is not what gave me a career. It was the third viral video. Then it was like, I've got a career. Do you understand what I'm saying? I can make money, you know what I mean? That, I think 2 million views, it was like, I mean, it was more than I was getting paid at the time. It was like £2,000 or something like that, you know what I mean?
Interesting. We're going to be talking money a lot, because I know you're a business guy. Like, we chat a lot on WhatsApp. So like, I can speak to Sully's like, just intent, like the way you focus on a subject. Like, for example, we've been talking about shorts lately.
Yeah, I'm gonna figure it out.
I just love how you geek out on this stuff, and you're always sharing stuff, going, check this out, study this guy, study this thing. So we're gonna talk money in a bit. But what you had a question you wanted to ask?
Yes, I wanted to ask. So Sully, you're obviously really passionate about what you do, and it shows through. And what would you say you love most about what you do?
It's funny because it took me a while to realize that, but I like manifesting things. I like thinking about an idea and bringing it to life and see how people respond to that. So initially it was like in little creative pieces, you know, but then it started to become in bigger creative projects, you know, or live projects. And now it's like, just for more like a more technical term, it's like intellectual property. Like, how do you create like intellectual property that has exponential value? You know what I mean? Because that all starts in your head, but then when you put it out in the world, it's worth like, you know, there's no limit on how much it's worth. You know what I mean? Like those pieces I wrote years ago, like the value of them still going up. You know what I mean? And I'm still getting it. You know, and that is like exciting to me.
Yeah.
You know, I used to read a lot when I was young, but mainly comic books. So I'm a big fan of how like the Marvel properties, you know, what you're seeing on the screen, I never imagined that as a child, you know. So seeing how you can take like in like little things and manifest them into like things of exponential like value is like, it's dope to me. It's really, really exciting.
So we get why you love what you do. What would you say is the most challenging aspect of your job?
Poetry or spoken word. It's initially restricted to live performance in a pub or a little workshop, whatever. So now my challenge was like I didn't want to be broke. I'm not going to lie to you. My challenge was like, I'm not going to just not do law so I can not, you know what I mean? So I was like, how do I create a space where this has value? So it was like, it was going on YouTube, you know, and then it's working with brands and agencies, but then really showing that how this art form can be leveraged in multiple capacities. And once people started to see that, all of a sudden there's a whole like influx of like poetry-based content, adverts, you know, like copy, because when you look at it, it migrates into so many different fields, you know, like film, literature, television, you know what I mean? Even live, you know, so it's quite, there's lots of extensions of it, but convincing people, and I found even to this day, you still have to convince people of the value, but then sometimes people even convince me how much more valuable my is worth, you know what I mean? Sometimes you don't know, you know what I mean? You don't know that until, you know? So that's it, but that's the hardest thing, like, because it doesn't exist and there's no set standards and barriers, so it's like breaking down those barriers at every level is interesting.
So just speaking to that, you know, you obviously you studied law, but you're doing something creative, something you love doing, but something that I wouldn't, you know, you might not ordinarily associate with as a way for people to generate an income, right? Being a poet and being a creative, you know, you hear people say, oh, creatives, you know, might struggle to make more of an income, that sort of stuff. So because this is a personal finance channel, let's talk a bit about money, because I know you're a business guy as well. You're very entrepreneurial, although you don't talk a lot about it. You've got a podcast. You want to just talk about your podcast, bro? Just shout it out.
Well, I was doing it for a while, 7 Figures podcast, but it's on a hiatus at the moment because of lockdown and other factors.
Okay. So you're clearly entrepreneurial. Do you want to just speak to how it is you monetize your craft?
I think what I've always done is I've always found a way to piggyback of pre-existing industries. So when it comes to like performing live, it's the same capacity like any comedian would perform live, like Kevin Hart or Chappelle or whatever, you know what I mean? Or any artist would. So you have that intrinsic live value. And then when it comes to the content creation piece, it's kind of like you have the same value any influencer has. You know, you leverage your audience, leverage your numbers. But another asset that you have that some content creators don't have is that you can also integrate your creativity into whatever campaign or brand you're doing, because you can specifically tailor it in your style to what they're doing. But that same style that you use, it's already been popularized when you look at television. So that's another industry that you can leverage. So television, the way people do advertisements and stuff like that. And you realize that that's another layer of value, you know what I mean? Because in the television industry, you get paid, you know, maybe for making the copy, you know, people wanting the rights, you know, producing the stuff. So there's already 3 different extensions. And then you can look at something like, I work sometimes with musicians, and then obviously, you know, that's already established that there's artists, you collaborate, you get paid for features, you know, which is not like a major like revenue stream for me, but, you know, and then I feel like with all those things combined, you kind of have like this growing revenue stream all based on like one art form, you know what I mean?
Imagine people watching this right now are people who've got a normal day job, a lot of them, and some of them run businesses. And for the people who have a normal day job, the income hits on a particular day, which is like, I don't know, the 31st of the month as an example. That's it. The money's in, it's guaranteed, they've got a job.
It's predictable.
Yeah.
So how, just give us some color on, or some detail around that for you. Like, how does it work? Like, how do you, you know, like all this activity you do from your work, you know, globally in many respects, how does it manifest into money in the bank?
So what would happen is I'd have projects, you know what I mean? So it'd be more like contracting than what kind of like day to day. So I'd have projects that I'd make money off, and, you know, and based on how much money I'd make, because it can be quite a lot. It kind of like, it's enough money to invest in what I'm doing, build more things, but then also until like another project comes in. As you can imagine, over a period of years, like the projects come back to back to back. They get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's kind of like it becomes like a bigger amount of money. Does that make sense? So then you look around and you're like, okay, I've got more than like the majority of people earning a year anyway. Do you understand? And I could earn that in a month, you know what I mean? Or I could earn that in over a period of months. You kind of get what I'm saying? So I guess the only, and I mean, one thing I'm learning from people who I know who are like really rich, you know, like billionaires, all that kind of stuff, is that they have like more consistent income streams, like on a consistent basis. So it may not be a lot, but it's more like you said, like a salary basis. And I'm trying to find ways to incorporate that with what I do, because I guess even with the money I had, it's going to increase even more if I can kind of feed those systems into it. So I guess the only problem I've had with that kind of way of working is I'm the kind of person who likes to invest a lot of money in my ideas, you know what I'm saying? And anyone who's an investor or you're investing in whatever, it's always good to know like how much you have coming in before you start investing. So I don't have that same kind of security in that sense, you know what I mean? Because and that's where I've learned, because I used to invest a lot in money in projects and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know directly how I'm going to make this money back, you know what I mean? So I need to be more smarter with that kind of dynamic of stuff. There was a point where I was more focused on YouTube, and that was like a residual income, and you know, you might be merch, all that kind of stuff. But I guess you kind of get, I'm a project focused person. I like focusing on one thing and that thing being big. You know what I mean? I like making one thing and that thing being like of massive. I'm like an Apple and Amazon kind of guy, you know what I mean? I'm not like hand-to-hand services. Do you know what I mean? And I'm learning more to incorporate that more element instead of like being like, oh, let's work on big projects and, you know, build them up and give value. But yeah, I'm trying to find the more like residual stuff as well, because I think to really get to that next tier, those are the things you have to access, because they just come in, you know what I mean? They come in and you don't have to like intensely focus. And once you're set in place and you have like a structure in there, they can work for themselves.
So what would you say is the maximum income potential for someone who is a creative entrepreneur and a poet like yourself?
Maximum?
Max.
There's no limit, man. Come on, man. We're aiming for like, you know, if people are, I mean, like right now, someone probably say like millions or whatever, you know what I mean? But for me, it's like, why would you stop there? Like, do you get what I'm saying? I feel like there's an opportunity. Like, so I grew up listening to Jay-Z, like, do you get what I'm saying? And so I've kind of watched his whole journey. And one of the things I learned about all those hip hop entrepreneurs was like the way you can leverage your value from one field to another and to another, you know what I mean? And when I'm sitting in rooms with people who are like billionaires and they've sold companies and stuff, like they're very brilliant and very smart, but at the end of the day, we're still only people. Like we're still all humans, and we're all going through process. I just understand it takes a bit longer to get to that journey. So, because I remember sitting in my law class, and the law teacher was like the most, and this was very naive of me at the time, but I don't regret it. That she was like, the most any of you will earn as like the highest tier of lawyers in this country will be like $250K a year, in it. And I was like, nah, that's not enough for me. Do you get what I'm saying? I mean, very naive at the time, because like that's a lot of money. Do you get what I'm saying? But for me, I'd always had a mindset to be like, okay, cool. I want to be able to earn like what my favorite athletes or like musicians, or do you kind of get what I'm saying? So
love it.
I don't know what the maximum is, but I do a lot of things in it, so I don't know.
Right, Suli. So you talk a lot about, you know, creating value and leverage, and we absolutely love it. So just because we're nosy, we'd love to know, how much do you currently make from being a poet and a creative entrepreneur per annum? Just give us, it could be a ballpark figure, you know, it doesn't have to be the accurate numbers, but would love to know.
Obviously, I don't want my mum to come and kind of hot me up too much, but I like being transparent, and I think. Let me put in context. So remember I was saying about the highest paid lawyer. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this year has been like a very good year. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I probably cleared the lawyer kind of thing, but it's not the lawyer kind of boundary threshold. But obviously you got to pay tax. You got to do a lot of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but outside of that, this is so bad because I have a podcast called Seven Figures where I'm supposed to be transparent and stuff, but I'm just going through some things at the moment that I don't want to discuss too much. Yes, but I mean, outside of that, I mean, 3 years ago, I think the most like, I remember making like 50K in 1 month, you know what I mean? And that was a big deal to me. I was like,
Wow.
whoa, like, you know what I mean? I've made 50K in 1 month. And it was like, yeah, you get what I'm saying? And obviously, and then like things have grown since then, and there's been ups and downs. And I mean, just to be fully transparent, like even outside of that, I've come to a point where I've lost money. I've lost all my money, you understand? And I've had to build again. And that's where I realized that's where really my confidence came from, knowing that I can build past the barriers that I thought previously existed. So I feel like, but don't get twisted, I could earn 60, 70, whatever K in 1 month, and the next month I might earn just like 2 grand, 3 grand, you know what I'm saying? But you can see how things like that kind of like change up, you know what I mean? But yeah, so I mean, like this year, like it's been a very, very good year. Let me just wait for some checks to clear before I stamp the amount on the year, do you understand?
Yeah.
I'd love to know, how's your budgeting? Just because, you know, you don't get paid like the same amount every month. Are you quite good at budgeting, or do you?
So I'm good at budgeting. No, I'm bad at budgeting, but I don't spend a lot. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
So it's like, so if you ask my wife, I'm bad at budgeting, but if she needs someone to take care of like not spend money and stuff like that, she'd be like, okay, cool, like you're the person to speak to, because like I don't spend a lot, you know what I mean? You get what I'm saying?
Makes sense.
Like I had something clear, it was about like 6 figures, you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm gonna buy myself something nice. And I went and bought a £10 book. You get what I'm saying? Like and I was proud of myself. I'm not like a massive kind of like spending person. When I see numbers, my head starts to
Interesting.
So I had to. So my wife made me go through my statements. I didn't know you could download your statements straight from your account into Excel. So what I actually did was I typed it all out one by one to see what I spend money on, what I don't. And most of my money was on like transport, and also like just it's literally all of my spending was like £2, because I'd go into Co-op and buy something. I'd go into Sainsbury's and buy something. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like even when I buy clothes, it'll be like, okay, I've got a shoot, I'm getting paid this much for the shoot. This much is what I'm going to spend on clothes for the actual shoot. And then, okay, now I've got a new pair of favorites. You know what I mean? I don't, what I spend a lot of money is on ideas. And that's what I need to kind of like realize, that you don't need to invest that much. So my budgeting is free. Maybe you guys can help me.
Would absolutely love to, Suli.
Do you know what? We can talk about that. Yeah. I wanted to just kind of like...
Sorry to cut you off actually, but that being said, like my wife, she studied accounting and finance. So we have general fees, like we have like maybe like my son's school fees, and we have like, we have to buy this much petrol, we have that stuff. And so I just give money for that kind of stuff, and the house, all that kind of stuff. And then my spending is that little £2 here, there.
So just because we talk a lot about money making on this channel, and we see we're more into actually being creative and making more money and achieving our goals a lot faster that way. In your personal view, what trends or opportunities are you seeing for money making out there at the moment? Just from your own kind of viewpoint as a creative entrepreneur, what are you seeing as ways that you might want to focus as a way to make money, or that you suggest other people explore as ways to maybe make some money?
I'm kind of bad at that, because like I said, I have this thing where I focus on specific areas and I just think about that. So for me, it's kind of like startups. You know, I just did a course which is like venture investing, angel investing, new venture program. So it's like investing in startups and kind of like more like publishing industry and like music. So I tend to focus on specific things that are interesting me. So stocks and stuff. There's a guy that I need to start paying for him to start teaching me how to do that. You know, my wife was telling me about the investment ISA, all that stuff, because I just tend to really focus on specific areas is quite bad. So we have a company in Ghana, which is like a creative music hub. Like we've got studios. So when I'm thinking how we make money, I'm just thinking, how do we kind of like build that business? You know, let me study everything music related. How do I make money in publishing? Let me study everything publishing related. So I'm the kind of person that if you tell me I have an idea to make money like this, I could talk you through strategy up and down. But if you say to me, how can I make money? That's a tough one for me, because money is a byproduct of my focus, but it's never really like, those are things that I kind of feel like I need to learn a bit more.
We wanted to know, do you have any plans of increasing your current income? If so, what do you plan to do differently to make that happen?
I really do, you know, I mean, I really do. I guess for me, it's kind of like, I'm thinking about IP. How do I create IP that I can leverage? It's all specific to me. Leverage into like a higher value than I can right now communicate myself. So I'm looking at like NFTs, the metaverse, like all these different projects that I can apply my creativity to. So I was talking to these guys in Russia the other day. They developed an NFT avatars, and they've already sold some on OpenSea and stuff. And I was kind of asking them, okay, how can we partner and do something similar for me? So that's interesting for me. But more importantly, like I have money in it. It's like, where can I put the money where it works for me? I've always felt like, so this year I took a different approach, and this is why I think I made quite a lot of money, because I've always felt like when I make money, two of my biggest things is, how do I reinvest it in an idea? And how do I pay people that I like? You know what I mean? I don't know. I've always had that issue where it's like, okay, how do I bring the man in? How do they do this? Do you understand? This year, maybe because of the lockdown and things, I took a step back from that. And so now I have money where it's like, the money's sitting there. How do I put it in places where it can start working? You know what I mean? Light stocks. And like I said, putting it in startups is cool, but you're waiting a long time. You know what I mean? So I think I've done like one big investment, and it might be doing a second one, but I have to consult my wife first. You know, the boss, you know, we can't.
Absolutely, you're a wise man.
But yeah, I think the most important thing is like, how do I put it in places where it's working for itself? And that is number one rule. That's when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad 10 whatever years ago, I understood like assets and liabilities, but the whole money working for itself. I think it's hard to understand that until you have money, or you have money coming in consistently. Because when I was working a job, like I didn't have like a big boy job like Ken, you know what I mean? I was working jobs that barely covered the bills in it. So there was no money that was really going to work for you. So.
What I like about just listening to you just then is just how open-minded you are. Like you're like speaking to some guys in Russia, talking about NFTs, you're looking at stock market, you're investing in startups. I think that's actually, I think that's incredible. Like
it's brilliant.
It shows you're very open-minded, and you're leaving your options fairly open, and you know, you're looking for, and that's how it works out. Something might just hit from you exploring one of those ideas and just completely take off.
Absolutely. Suli, what top 3 pieces of advice would you give to somebody who wants to become a creative entrepreneur like yourself and get those big checks, those big deals, earn as much as you do and potentially even more?
I think in this day and age, the biggest advice I can give people is that like, all the tools you need to be successful in the space, like at your disposal, they're accessible. Like for me to start on YouTube, like when I was posting on Facebook, my wife used to have like a flip camera. I don't know why she had it. And that was like my first camera. And then I had to save up to buy my first Canon. Do you know what I'm saying? Now it's like people have iPhones, you know, people have like the right lighting, and people are able to, when I started YouTube, you had to apply to become a partner, to become a partner. You know what I mean? You had to apply and you had to wait, and becoming a partner was like a massive deal. Oh my God, I'm a YouTube partner. Now you can just do that. All these platforms opening up streams to monetization already. So my thing is like, all the tools you need to be successful are accessible to you right now. And that's kind of why I took a step back, like I said this year, where it was like, instead of investing so much in all these massive projects, like the tools are here. So I think that's the biggest advice I had. The tools are accessible. Like, you just have to look for them and start with them. And then the next piece of advice I have, I'd guess, would be like, educate yourself. Like for me, education is a massive thing. If if I was going to go into formal education again, I would definitely do it, but I'd do it around this. And I have done it, you know, I did a writing course at Stanford not too long ago over the lockdown. And that was like, educate yourself in the areas that you're trying to excel in. Do you get what I'm saying? Like really educate yourself, because like education is invaluable, because like I said, everyone can take your money, they can take all these opportunities, but if you have the education, you can build yourself from 0 to XXX, and no one can take that away from you. Do you get what I'm saying? I feel like too many artists take for granted the value of talent, you know what I mean? And talent is cool, but you know, there's a homeless man in the station in King's Cross who is singing his heart out better than some people that are topping the charts on Spotify, you know what I mean? Talent is cool, but education is kind of like, it's invaluable, you know what I mean? I feel like that's an important thing. And then I wouldn't say hard work, because hard work is important. Smart work, you got to be smart, but I guess discipline, you know, like, you know, I can pretty much do with what I want with my day if I chose to, but the goal is to kind of like, I have like the goal to build a legacy, you know, to change a generation. I have, you know, and you have to be very disciplined in achieving those things, especially when your tools are your creativity and you're your own boss, you know what I mean?
I hear you.
Love it.
How would you describe your relationship with money, Suli?
I don't like, if you talk to anybody, I think they'll just say, I like making money, but I don't really like money is not, it can't move me, you understand what I'm saying? Because like I said, I can make a lot of money and it's kind of like, cool, I made that. How do I hit the next milestone? And it's not because the milestone's monetary, it's because my heroes are billionaires, you know what I mean? And it's like, how did they make that much? They're millionaires here. It's like, okay, you know, I mean, for me, the getting a big check was not like, oh, I've got all this money. It's like, okay, it's validation that I'm not crazy, you know, that I can operate in the same levels as the people that I admire. So for me, money's always like, it's a signifier, and it also means I can take care of my family, you know what I mean? So you know, I don't have to worry about my son that's going to school, you know, I don't need to worry about that. And once I don't need to worry about that, and my wife and my family are good, I mean, now they're good. Now it's like, how do I take care of my wider family? And now, once all of them are good, I have the freedom to go and make Apple or Marvel or whatever without having to worry about it, like, to do something like big without having to worry about their security, you know what I mean? So so there's nothing. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think growing up, I always just saw it as opportunity, and even in capitalism, I see it as a freedom because of the society we live in, you know. So I don't spend a lot. I probably spend the most on my wife, even though she'd disagree. I probably spend the most, but the most expensive single items I've bought is probably for her. Like, do you get what I'm saying?
What would you say you learned from your parents about money growing up?
That is everything. I mean, in the sense that, I'll be honest with you, in the sense that like so many decisions were made in my household because there wasn't enough money, you know what I mean? So, you know, my parents, they had to live in Ghana. We lived here, you know what I mean, by myself, probably from when I was like 17, going uni, you know what I mean? And it kind of showed me how much money, and to say it's everything, it's not, because they taught me more important value. They told me God is more important, being a good person. They told me that these are the fundamentals to like being, to thrive in, you know what I mean? But then they also showed me like how important money was to make things happen. You know, I never had the privilege of being like, oh, it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? Or like, you don't need to. They really kind of put me in that context to kind of understand that. And my dad, he's like a very creative person. He always, and he taught me a big lesson. And he'll tell you to this day, he always had a new venture. He was an inventor, a film director. Wow. And he says that whenever he didn't see any money, he just stopped doing it. You know what I'm saying? And he said to me, that's one of the reasons why he never he wasn't successful in a lot of his ventures. So that's one of the things I learned, that even when you don't see the money, you keep going, because the money might come. Yeah, keep going. So that's such an important lesson that he taught me, and he verbalizes it, you know what I mean? That was such an important, like, it shouldn't be a motivator, you know what I mean? Because once the motivation goes, you know, but my mom, she loves shopping. If I drop her money now, it's her birthday, she's been telling me, you know, it's my birthday, she's gonna live her best week, you know what I mean?
Like, how do you treat yourself? You know, you work hard, you're a creator. Like, what do you enjoy doing for yourself?
That's what I do spend money on, actually. That's a good point. So I discovered, you know, when you grow up, you don't know this. I discovered you can have massages. You know, I've even got like a chiropractor now. You know, I was having facials. Yeah, I've got to go for my chiropractor. I think the only one that I've had a bad experience with is having a not bad experience, but a personal trainer, and the gym's closed down in it. But so I realized the importance of just like investing in like having a peace of mind, because everything happens here. So I go for the massages. You know, I have therapy, but I don't know if therapy is like enjoyment. It's kind of like necessary. You know? I spend money on that. It's weird because my wife and son just came back from Dubai and I could have gone with them, but I find it hard to relax when I'm working on a project. You know what I mean? But once the project's done, if I hop on the plane to Ghana, like I feel like I'm the freest person in the world. You know what I'm saying? So that's probably and I like reading. I like reading a lot, so I invest a lot in. I wouldn't say I invest a lot in books because books are more expensive, but more importantly, I just like bringing stuff to life. You know what I mean? Like if I have an idea, but yeah, I treat myself in that capacity. Yeah, you lot should try the chiropractor. That guy changing hands is really important. Like, trust me.
Yeah. I never considered that. Yeah.
Oh no, go man, go. You feel great. And I guess it's good for like stress that you don't know you have. You know what I mean? And then I'm starting to become like a regular, like at the massage place. That's like, yeah, that's like.
Thank
you.
So
those are the kind of things that like I'll spend money on. Let me think. And I think I have certain experiences that I really want to do. One of them, which is like in the future, is like something that even before Elon and Bill Gates, I really wanted to go to like Mars and space. Like that's been my obsession for whatever. But then like Japan, I really wanted to go to Japan, but I was able to go to Japan. I think the next thing that I might want to do is like go to like an NBA All-Star game. You know what I mean? Just little things that I saw as a kid and I really wanted to like manifest. So those are probably like things in the pipeline.
So Sully, what would you say is your ultimate financial goal, if you actually have one?
So I guess I was watching this guy on YouTube and he was like, he's moved to Las Vegas. And he said that he moved to Las Vegas because it's cheaper than LA, but also in Las Vegas, the houses are really big, but they're cheap. So he's got his own compound, but he's planning on buying the houses opposite, the houses on that side, and then moving his family into there. Like, do you kind of get, and I think it's always been a big vision of mine to be able to like build like a community like that, because my friends like the really successful ones, and these are guys that have been in the game like, if you see, like, my friend, his house is amazing. His house is right here. Around the corner is just his dad's house and his sister's house. And both of their houses, like, they're all successful in their own right. But his dad's house is like, you walk into his dad's house and there's a swimming pool underneath the front roof. Like, you can see through the floor. And it's like one of the nicest houses I've seen in London. Like, it's mind-blowing.
In London?
Wow.
In London. Like, mind-blowing. You understand?
Wow.
But the idea of being able to create, like, everybody be successful and live in the same shared community, like to be able to be like, go to your sisters, you might say to
good for childcare.
Aunties. Yeah, go to your aunties, you know what I mean? It's just around you.
It's like perfect childcare.
So Sully, you're basically trying to buy an island, yeah? Can we live on it?
Exactly.
You're welcome, yeah. Yes, I like that idea. I like the idea of having something like that. You know, for me, everything's about family. That's what community and family, that brings me more joy than anything. And knowing that I can put myself in a position to like do some stuff and help them, for me, that's like, that's the ultimate legacy and goal in it. You know what I mean? Like I have big aspirations, and I think that's what keeps me disciplined.
Wow.
Awesome.
Sully, thank you so much for joining us today on this series.
No problem.
So much, man. Thank you for being really, generous with your advice and sharing your experiences and stuff. Like, you've got a fascinating life so far. And honestly, I can see, we can see so much ahead. And given that, we've gotten to know you in the last 12 months, it's just been amazing getting to know you, understand how you think, what your vision is for your family, that sort of stuff. But we really, really appreciate you coming on this series.
Absolutely. And we're going to share. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to, see your amazing poetry, what you're up to? How can they get in touch and stay connected?
Yeah, I mean, every social platform is Suli Breaks, SuliBreaks. I'm in a bit of like a hibernation silo, like learning and studying at the moment. So creative projects would probably be very specific. But if it's anything like business related, like working together, how you can make me some money, I'm more than happy to partner. I'm more than happy to partner because, you know, next year we're really just trying to up the levels, and then maybe I'll come back on the podcast. Maybe I'll come back on here and talk that money talk, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
right now, I'm still working. I'm only getting there, you know what I mean? I'm still working. But
bro, listen.
Hopefully.
You're doing big things, man, and we're excited for you. So
super excited. Like Ken said, it's just been great hearing from you, you know, your thought process, and, you know, it's just been great. Everyone who watches this will definitely find a lot of value in this. So thank you so much for your time and coming onto our show. Yeah. It's been awesome having you guys. Guys,
by the way, if you've not seen the rest of the series, we've interviewed pretty much, you know, quite a lot of different careers and professions and those sort of people. So whether it's gamers, you know, music producers, surgeon, accountant. Actually, I did that one. Software engineer. We've got taxi driver. Exactly. We've done many others, you know. So we're going to link to all those below for you guys. Head over and check them out. But apart from that, thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, in all things,
be thankful and
seek joy.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye, Suli. Thank you so much, man.
Take care, guys.
Bye.